You have one precious life. How will you make your money work for you? It's time for Sage Money Conversations, where your financial happiness and confidence are always the subject. Here's your host, certified financial planner, Barbara Norman.
Hello and welcome to Sage Money Conversations. I'm your host, Barbara Norman, and today we're talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, Social Security. And we have with us Martha Shedden. And I love Martha's story. She was a civil engineer for over 30 years and then went to study Social Security and found that this is really a complex area. So not only is Martha a chartered retirement planning counselor, but she teamed up with a partner, a CPA, to form NARSSA to educate other financial professionals and CPAs about Social Security. And so I guess the question is, why is Social Security so complex? Martha, can I go on a rant here really quick?
Yeah, feel free.
There is a woman, and I'm not going to tell you how I know her, but she's in retirement and she was complaining about being on a fixed income. Now, that's a legit complaint. And I said, well, you just got a nice bump in Social Security. She goes, I don't get Social Security. I said, what do you mean? She says, I was a school teacher. I never paid into it. And I said, well, okay. Now she's twice widowed. I said, okay, but how about your husband? She says, oh, he was a teacher too. He didn't qualify for Social Security. I said, okay, tell me about your first husband. She goes, oh yeah, he qualified for Social Security. I said, were you married for more than 10 years? And she says, oh, of course I was. I said, well, why aren't you applying under his Social Security? And she said, my financial advisor didn't say to do that. Martha, what kills me is that financial advisors, to be a financial advisor, you have to have a high school education, pass 2 tests, and there's nothing in there about Social Security. This scares the crap out of me. And so I could talk about my own mom. Well, I'm going to talk about my mom too, who worked in a grocery store. She was the florist, and she started taking Social Security at 62 while she was still working. Now, we know all the disasters with that. I said, Mom, why didn't you ask me? And she says, well, the guy in the produce department said if I should take it now and not wait, because I get the income all these years. Okay, my mom's family lives they lived to over 100 years old. Martha, tell us what was wrong with that. Tell us what's wrong with these pictures.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, the second one you described, first of all, if she's still working and only 62, she's subject to the earnings test that Social Security has. And if she earns over, it's about $19,000 a year right now, then part of her Social Security benefit is withheld. And that can lead to all kinds of issues and inadvertent overpayments by Social Security, and then they come back and want you to repay the money. It's just not wise to start if you're still working.
62, taking a ridiculously reduced.
Not to mention that reduced. Yes, the difference between claiming at 62 and if you can wait all the way to the age 70, which many people cannot do that, but that's a 76% increase just for waiting to claim.
Isn't that crazy? Well, and you gave me a statistic. I love it. You said, given that 96% of households do not make the most optimal claiming decisions, that $110,000 is lost by the average household over their lifetimes. Oh my gosh, that is a huge statistic. So let's start slicing and dicing Social Security. Let's start with, how is Social Security calculated?
Okay, that's one of the biggest misunderstandings. So it is your top 35 years of earnings after they are adjusted for inflation. So that's called indexing. So you can't tell from your statement which are your top 35 years because those are the dollars you earned in that year. They have to be adjusted up to everyone's base year is the year we turn 60. So those top 35 years that after they've been adjusted for inflation, those are divided by the number of months in 35 years, that's 420, and you get what they call the average indexed monthly earnings. And then there's another equation that turns that into the PIA. And PIA is your benefit, your monthly benefit amount you would receive at your full retirement age.
Okay, wow.
A lot of acronyms there and
That's,
stuff.
how would someone manage that? How would someone look at like, what are my highest earnings years?
Well, Social Security shows that on your statement. They do show what you'll get at 62, full retirement age, and age 70. But that assumption all along your working life is based on that they're assuming you're going to earn what you made the previous year for all the years up to the date you claim. There's no calculation in there for different earnings, for maybe stopping working before you claim, but those numbers are given on the statement.
Statements. It's now Social Security has gone paperless, so we go on to SSA.gov, right?
Yes, and I encourage everyone to, as soon as they start working, to go to SSA.gov and sign up for a My Social Security account, because they should be checking their earnings every year. And I believe last year, SSA said that they would start sending statements out now again to people who do not have an SSA account.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, that's good, because hopefully those statements will get in the hands of younger workers and they will pay attention to this. They should be planning for their retirement in every way possible. And you mentioned the amount of lost income by the average household. Well, the amount of income that people get, and this is what shocked me when I first started learning about it, is way more than anyone realizes. If you just take the average monthly amount this year, about $1,660, that's about $20,000 a year. Over 20 to 30 years of retirement, that's $400,000 to $600,000. That is, it is, it's many people's largest asset, and that's how they should think of it.
Well, let me ask you this, because those are large numbers, and we keep hearing about our illustrious government who's saying we got to start cutting these entitlement programs, and Social Security is one of those. And they keep saying Social Security is underfunded. I hear people say, I can't count on it. Tell me about the state of Social Security.
That is one of my biggest, that's just crazy. So first of all, it's not an entitlement program. We aren't being given that. We are paying into it when we work. And by paying those taxes, or their contributions, it's the FICA, the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. That is the official name of Social Security and Medicare. You're making contributions and your employer is making contributions every paycheck. And
that's 15% of our income. That's a lot going into Social Security.
And that's what we should, that, you know, as you're saving for any other retirement account, 401ks, IRAs, think of it that way. You're contributing to your retirement. Now, the trust funds, there's so much misunderstanding about that. The system is designed as a pay-as-you-go system. So back in the 30s, there were 30 or 40 workers for every retiree. Those contributions being made by those workers paid for the benefits for the beneficiaries, for the retirees. Nowadays, there's only about 2 workers for each retiree. Wow. And so the amount going into the trust fund will exceed the amount that is promised to be paid at 100% in the 2030s at some point. So that's what's going on. Right now, though, we have a surplus in those trust funds that was created by some amendments back in 1983. And we're using up that surplus. Once the surplus is gone in 2035 or so, then it would revert back to, okay, we just have the income from the people paying into it.
Okay, that's really scary because it's fewer workers and we're living by far longer.
Exactly.
So is people's Social Security going to go away?
No, it'll never go away. If absolutely nothing is done to strengthen the program by that date, 2035 or 34 or 33, then about 80% of benefits would be able to be paid.
Okay.
Yeah. But
So 20% reduction.
yeah, and if you want to be very conservative, you can plan for that. You can plan, okay, I'm only going to get 80% of what they say I will. But I'm an optimist, and I've seen what's happened over the program for 87 years. And I know something's going to be changed. There's huge support for Social Security across all demographics, all political parties.
So Martha, that's really good to know about planning on maybe a 20% decrease on my Social Security. Let me talk to you about another thing that I'm hearing, because I hear a lot that when people go to the Social Security office, that they're not getting good advice. In fact, I've learned that a lot of the people that work for Social Security and have been there a long time and know the rules and know the nuances are retiring and gone. Now we've got this new set of Social Security people coming up, and they're getting bad advice at Social Security too. Tell us how to navigate that.
Yes, unfortunately, we do hear that sometimes too, and that's the hard thing for individuals to find that individual help that they need. But actually, the Social Security Administration is precluded by law from giving personal advice. They can definitely help you, get your statement and answer questions, but they can't do that analysis and that comparison. And like my partner Michael likes to say, who's a CPA, he says, would you go to the IRS for help with your taxes?
They're not going to tell you.
No. And so we ask people that all the time, who do you go to for advice on Social Security? And they don't know. And that's our goal, to change that, because there should be help, and there is help with the power of the software that we can really help clients. So remember those 2,700 rules and all those alternatives.
It's pretty pathetic to me that one of our biggest assets, and there's no advice on that. That's really sad. And I think back to that example we came up on the first one about that woman who's a school teacher, and her first husband was eligible, but she doesn't even know. And she has lost so many years of income. Social Security didn't reach out to her to say, hey, you're eligible. She didn't know it. She didn't have the advice. Oh my gosh, how sad is that?
It's very, very sad. And you might happen to hear that you're eligible by someone else telling you, but not necessarily. And the hard thing, Barbara, is that here we are at this age, we're getting ready to retire, and we have to do this extensive work to find the answer to our questions when there is
questions to ask,
and not even know what questions to ask. That's right. That's
frustrating, frustrating. Okay, so that's kind of the state of Social Security. We pay into it now. We've got these statements. Tell me, we get these things, why not take it at 62 or 65? Why wait till 67, 68, or 70? Talk to us about when to take benefits and why to take benefits.
So the biggest point I want to make here is that is an extremely personalized decision. And you mentioned the produce manager that told your mom to take it. And that just capsulizes what it is. People hear all these statements from random friends and family. You need to be educated on the rules that apply to you. You mentioned the widow. There's divorce benefits, spousal benefits. There are benefits that are affected by the pension that you mentioned. There's benefits, though, if the breadwinner passes away and has a young wife and children. So I think of it as an optimal decision of when to claim. Some people definitely need to claim at 62. That's great. They should be doing that.
Okay, so why would someone take benefits at 62?
Well, they aren't physically able to continue working. They have a history of not a very long life expectancy in their family. They may actually have a number of medical issues. They just absolutely need that money, that income at that age.
Okay, so, and you're bringing up a really important point right now. I could take Social Security at 62. What if I apply for Social Security disability? So there's two different programs going on there. Tell us about that.
So Social Security Disability Insurance, it's a wonderful program. It is the most difficult disability insurance to qualify for, much more difficult than private disability insurance programs. But if it's done right and you have the assistance, I've just learned recently, I've finally figured out why disability is so frustrating to people. The application is very rigorous. It requires very strict medical data and information. It's a long application, and people just don't include all the details that they should. And so you hear often, Barbara, probably that people, I don't know, 60 or 80% of the first applications aren't approved.
That's
And
what I heard is the first answer is no, you got to reapply.
right. And I now recommend anyone who feels that they should apply for disability, and they shouldn't hesitate if they do feel that way, that they should find an attorney to help them. Now, attorneys who help with disability applications are paid, they're limited in their fee, and it's a certain percentage of the retroactive payment or something like that. But it is well worth the time and cost to do that, because once attorneys help you with the application, that's when they start getting approved.
Well, that's pretty cool, because now someone who's disabled doesn't have a lot of income. What I'm hearing you say is it doesn't cost you anything up front, nothing out of pocket to hire that attorney. They're going to get paid retroactively on the backside, and assuming that they do get the Social Security disability.
Right. And so I highly recommend that everyone start with that. And
Okay, so talk dollars. What's the difference between taking Social Security at 62 and what's the difference between getting?
yes, so disability, the way that's calculated, remember earlier I talked about the PIA, the primary insurance amount that we get at our full retirement age. If you're approved for disability, that is your disability amount, regardless of when you start collecting disability. Then when you reach the full retirement age, it turns into name only, it turns into a retirement benefit.
So that's awesome. I could be 62, but getting that age 67 dollar amount if it's disability. That's huge. So, okay, one great tip there. If you don't have longevity, if you're not feeling well, what would it take to qualify for, like, how would I say, yes, I should apply, or nah, it's not going to work?
You really need to not be able to perform your previous work. It's a very rigorous medical level of disability, and not have any transferable skills to another job.
Okay.
So there's very specific guidelines, and that's why the medical issues, you have to be very clear, make sure you're including every medical issue that you have. The attorney I spoke with, he mentioned someone who had lower extremity problems with their legs and feet. They also had some mental struggles. That's where the help in the application is critical.
That's really sound advice. Okay, so that's why we would take it at 62. Now we're going to talk about why wait. And I'm thinking back to someone who in 2008, 62 years old, and their job's kind of contractor, things kind of started going sideways. So it was like, what the heck? I'm going to take Social Security, roll the clock forward just a few years, and now they're absolutely regretting that decision. They can't go back, they can't change it. So why would we wait till 65?
Okay, well, there's 2 points there that I want to address. First of all, there is an opportunity for that person to change it if they're financially able to. First of all, when you first apply, you have 12 months to withdraw the application if something changes, which has happened, I think, to a number of people in the last few years with the pandemic and everything that's gone on with jobs. So you can withdraw the application, pay back what you received with no interest, and wipe the slate clean. For the instance you just said, when they reach their full retirement age, which is between 66 and 67, but we're going to use 67 to make it easy, they're able to voluntarily suspend the benefit. And then it grows from delayed retirement credits. So the way that your benefit works is that if you start at that full retirement age of the PIA, if you claim early, every month younger than that, it's going to be reduced. So if you were eligible for $1,000 at age 67, if you collect it at 62, it's only going to be $700, 70% of the 1,000. So it goes down on a monthly basis by a fraction of percent. It's 5 to 7% a year, and it goes down to 62. But if you wait from your full retirement age up until 70, it increases by 8% a year.
That's huge.
That's huge. And it is a monthly, so it's not like you have to wait a year to get the increase. Every month you wait, it's going to be a bigger benefit.
Okay, so let's think about this. If normal retirement age is 67 and I wait till the age of 70 to collect, I get a 32% increase for having waited.
67 to 70 would be 24%. Yeah, 32 for 66 to 70. Yeah.
I was thinking 66 to 70. So, okay, is it feasible to say that if somebody waited that long, would they get an extra $1,000 a month?
They could. I mean, it depends on their initial PIA. Let's see. If you think of someone that gets 3,000 at full retirement age and you multiply that by 24%.
Okay, let's use the number where they get $800 more. And here's the calculation I do with my clients. So if we take $800,
that's almost 10,000 a year.
10,000 a year. So here's the calculation. If I take $10,000, right, and divide it by what I think I can earn on my money. So let's be conservative. Let's say I can get 3.5% in the bond. Let's use 3.5%. Let's take $10,000. I'm going to divide that by 3.5%. Over $285,000 I would need in an account at 3.5% to give me that $800 a month. That's huge, huge. Now I know we're talking about interest only, but markets go up, markets go down. Social Security keeps clicking in, and we get raises on that. So waiting is so important. So if you're still in the workforce, 67 to 70, don't take it. Right? And I think this is a financial planning question because I do encourage my clients with longevity to wait till 70. And when I show them this is what we would have to have in the market to equal that 32% increase, it's huge. I mean, it's just a huge benefit. And so, but then I get the argument, well, but I didn't get all that income for those 3 years. Like, how do you answer that? Where's the break-even point?
That's a really good question, that break-even point. And that depends on your life expectancy, and it also depends on your relationship status. You know, are you single, divorced, widowed, married? When you're married, the possibility of one collecting a spousal benefit and the other a retirement benefit, it gets quite complicated. And then you want to be thinking about, you know, maybe one of them starts early, but the higher wage earner, if they start later, that's going to benefit the survivor. Because the survivor benefit, when one of a couple passes away, the survivor inherits that higher amount.
And that's huge. I'm glad you said that because that's a strategy I use a lot is, and I'm going to, sorry right now, but that's the way it is. Husband earned a whole lot more. We defer his till 70. We take wife's at 67 so they get that income for 3 years. But you're right. When one of them passes away, they pop up to the larger amount. And so it behooves the widow for them to have waited till 70.
That's correct. And I've talked to 3 different couples, Barbara, over the years. And the woman was the one reaching out to me. And the husband, like you just mentioned, historically, this is still true. Most husbands do have the higher earnings. All 3 of those men were just, they felt they wanted to take it at 62.
Oh, no.
And they didn't hire me to do an analysis, not any of the three. So that's really difficult to hear.
$110,000 per household, that's the average. I mean, that what you just described is devastating.
Yes, because we have longer life expectancies, women do. We often marry men older than ourselves, have lower lifetime earnings. So we're, generally the survivor of a couple.
Okay, so let's talk about widows and divorcees. So let's start with a widow, husband and a wife. Tell us just in a nutshell how that looks. Husband and wife earning, one passes away. Just a primer on that, please.
For survivor?
Yeah.
Yes, so it's pretty straightforward. Survivor benefits are special though. First of all, there's more opportunity for switching from your own benefit if you're eligible for it to the survivor benefit or vice versa. You can start collecting survivor benefits at age 60 rather than 62, but they will be reduced. So survivor benefits, the amount depends not only what the deceased spouse was collecting, but the age that the survivor starts collecting. And again, in the situation of the couples I just mentioned, where the husband started at 62 and he got that 70% value of his own benefit, correct? And so the widow of someone like that, she would get that lower amount. And if she started collecting it early at 60 or 62, there would be a further reduction.
Ouch.
Yes, but with help from an RSSA, that's why we help people, you can calculate that out. You can decide, when is the survivor eligible for their own retirement benefit? Remember, I described that's going to go up from 62 to 70. The survivor benefit's going to increase up to full retirement age. So
that's huge.
Yes. So when do you collect the survivor at a reduced and then switch? It's just complicated. You can't do it without a software analysis, but it's well worth that.
Okay, so you bring up a really important point, because the question is, how do we get these numbers to figure it out? And I find that people get so frustrated when they go online or they go to Social Security. Like, getting those numbers is like finding the keys to the Pentagon. So what's the best way to get our numbers?
Well, I don't mean to do a sales pitch or anything, but that's why we formed NARSSA, because when I first started learning about Social Security, I just formed my own company and started charging an amount like, pay me $200 and I'll help you, because I just could not. It was so sad to see the confusion and so rewarding to see that sense of relief and just the sense that they know the answer. Whatever the amount is, they know what they're going to get. And it's well worth,
So do you go to Social Security and get their individual numbers? I was shocked when you said $200, because that's nothing compared to what they can get income over a lifetime, even income over a month. Okay, I'm shocked and I'm pleased.
Well, then I raised my rates too. So at NARSSA, we have in-house RSSAs, and I think we're charging $450 for singles and $650 for couples. But it gives you this report with all the possible combinations, especially if you're married, of claiming at this age or that age. You clearly see the numbers. You see the maximum lifetime, which is just based on your life expectancy. But then you also see, okay, what if we claimed at 65 and 68? What would that look like? And then in the context of your financial planning, as you know, you can work everything else around that. Yeah. Okay,
so I love this. Having those numbers would be huge. Let's switch gears now to someone who's divorced, because, small known fact that even though you divorce, you still, as long as you're married for 10 years, correct? You can still collect on your former spouse's Social Security benefit. But let's say that someone was married to a, high-powered engineer, they get a divorce, and now she remarries the kid's soccer coach.
Well, you cannot collect on an ex spouse if you remarry.
Right.
So
Bad
you can't do that.
mistake on so many levels.
But you know what? You can collect on an ex-husband who has passed away a survivor benefit if you wait to remarry till after 60.
Oh, no kidding. Cool. I just learned something really cool.
No kidding.
So, okay, so someone is divorced, right? And it's either their social security or their former spouse's. Let's say that the former spouse is still living. So what are we looking at there? Hers, his.
So the way spousal benefits work is that one spouse is eligible to collect up to 50% of the other spouse's PIA if the person collecting it collects it at their full retirement age.
Okay.
If you collect before your full retirement age, it's going to be reduced, and it doesn't increase above 50%. Then it just simply comes down to the dual entitlement rule. So someone who has their own retirement benefit, but is also eligible to collect a spousal benefit, you only get the higher of the two amounts.
So mine are 50% of his.
Right. But then there's that calculation. If it's 50% at your full retirement age and your benefit is a little bit less than that, but it's going to keep going up until 70, that's where you want to plan to decide what to do. And you can't switch.
You cannot switch. So if I take 50% of his and defer mine till 70, no switching.
Right. Well, if it's, yeah, and you can only take his if it's larger than your, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think an important distinction to make here is that it does not take away from that former spouse's income. He gets his regardless. He or she gets theirs regardless.
That's correct. And it doesn't affect any of the former spouse's dependents either, any current spouse or children that they may have.
And how long do you have to be married to someone to qualify for that benefit?
You do have to be married for 10 years or more to be eligible for ex-spousal and ex-survivor benefits.
Okay, 10 years or more.
Yes, and if you are, I'd like to clarify a little more about the spousal benefit. For a spouse to take a spousal benefit, the other partner must be collecting a retirement benefit.
Okay.
So you cannot collect a spousal benefit based on your partner's earnings if the partner hasn't started collecting their own retirement benefit. But that doesn't apply to divorce situations if you've been divorced for over 2 years. Once you're divorced for over 2 years, it doesn't matter at all what your ex-spouse is doing. If they started collecting, they may not even know you're collecting based on their earnings.
This is so complex. Widowed, divorced, crazy. What if I have a late light marriage and my spouse dies, but we have not been married 10 years? Now what's the rule?
Yeah, you're not eligible.
Out of luck.
Out of luck, yes. But as a married couple, you're eligible after 1 year for spousal benefits and 9 months for survivor benefits.
Okay, so if I'm just married 10 months and my spouse dies, and that person is collecting, that's pretty generous.
Well, and even if that person wasn't collecting, you have a situation where, say, a young family and the husband passes away in an accident or from an illness, and he leaves behind a young 40-ish wife with 2 children, they're eligible for a certain amount of survivor benefits based on his earnings.
Oh, wow. So even though, so I know that children are before the age of 18, and it cuts off when they graduate high school, correct?
Correct.
Okay, not college, high school, and not 18 day of graduation.
Or 18 or up to 19 until they finish high school, whichever comes first.
Okay, cool. But now we've got a widow who's 40 years old and has these two children, does she have a benefit?
And yes, that is called a child in care spousal benefit. So she's caring for her children. That applies if the children are 16 or younger, or
Okay.
younger than 16.
Is there a benefit if there's no children?
For the surviving spouse, not until age 60.
Until age 60, okay. Good information. Wow, okay, so we've got a lot of information here. I would love to go into how Social Security is taxed, but Martha, I want you to come on again and we're gonna dig deep into that topic, but just in a nutshell, tell us a little bit about Social Security taxation and why we need to be thinking about that.
Well, that's why you need a very knowledgeable financial tax professional, one or the other. So Social Security income can be taxed. Whether it's taxed and how much it's taxed is based on, of course, these complicated rules that Social Security has. But the one thing to know is that only up to 85% of Social Security income can be taxed. And it's dependent on how much other income you have in retirement. So they form what's called a combined income. They take your adjusted gross income and half of your Social Security income and one other item, which is tax exempt interest.
Oh, tax exempt interest, so it's income, capital gains, tax exempt interest. Nothing is sacred here.
No, but only 50% of Social Security income is included in that calculation.
Okay.
Preference. And then depending on how much that is, whether you're single or married, there's different thresholds. There's another set of equations that determines actually how much will be taxed. So the benefit of tax and financial professionals understanding this is that they can help their clients in certain cases manage that income in retirement. In other words, where are they withdrawing the funds from? Are they from fully taxable accounts, or if they have Roth IRAs? You know, you can help them possibly use other funds in the years to wait to collect till 70 and reduce required minimum distributions on your qualified accounts. So there's a lot that sometimes can be done. That doesn't really apply to ultra wealthy individuals. Low income individuals probably won't have any of their Social Security income taxed.
Right? It's that middle market, and the devil is in the details, and it's the things that we don't know as consumers and never have been educated on that hurt us the most. And so all of these little nuances. Martha, you have given us so much information. I think my takeaway from this is kids don't try this at home. Help, because there was a lot of money on the table. There's a lot of taxes on the table. Tell me what. Give us some gems here to close out this.
Well, I just encourage people to ask questions. Don't be satisfied. Don't just base your collection date on just because you stopped working or because your neighbor or your cousin did that. I mean, there's 2,700 rules in the program's operations manual system, and then there's exceptions to all those rules. So every person has their own unique, personalized details that affect their claiming. And then it's not just about, as I hope we've seen, it's not just about the age, it's about what's optimal within their other financial resources during retirement. And that's why it's a financial decision. It's a big financial decision. It is many people's largest asset.
That is huge. Martha, if our listeners wanted to find you, how could they reach out to you and get your help?
Well, you can email me at Martha@NARSSA. That's the National Association of Registered Social Security Analysts. So Martha@NARSSA.org. You can also write to us, email us at help at rssa.com. And that is our in-house team of analysts. We provide a free 10-minute consultation to go over these details of your specifics. And then that will help you decide if you'd like us to do an analysis for you.
Oh, I love that. Help at rssa.com. I'm going to be sending people to you. That's huge. Martha, thank you so much for being on the show. You are a wealth of information. We'll have you back on here in a couple of months, and we're going to start unpacking taxes and Social Security.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you.
Advisory services are offered through Barbara J. Norman, LLC, an investment advisor in the states of California and Texas. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell, nor an offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of California, or where otherwise legally permitted. All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decisions. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to be complete analysis of the materials discussed. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of SagePath Solutions and are subject to change without notice.